everybody. Welcome to another episode of All the WrestleManias, the podcast. I'm your co-host, Tim Hackman.
And I'm your co-host, Rich Sigwald.
We are always excited to be in the studio with you, and we're especially excited this evening. We've got a fantastic show to talk about. We're talking about WrestleMania 3 from all the way back in 1987. It's a monumental moment in the history of professional wrestling. And on top of that, we're extra super duper excited because we have some colleagues, some co-hosts, some friends in the studio with us, and we're saying hello to the co-hosts of the Turtle Wars podcast, Andy and Jeff. Hey guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, everybody?
It's great to have you here. Hopefully you guys caught the sort of crossover we did with the Turtle Wars guys maybe a month or two back. They were nice enough to invite us on their show, and then promptly horrified them with our extensive rambling about professional wrestling, and they immediately regretted it.
No, it was a really good episode. You guys do have a very extensive knowledge of wrestling, though. I was very impressed.
It makes us a lot of fun at the parties.
Oh, yeah. All the ladies love us. So
tell us some more about Roddy Piper. Like, well, so
if they don't enjoy the party, you're at the wrong party.
That's right.
So yeah, so welcome to the show. You're our first podcast guest. We've had an expert on here before to talk about some academic side of things, but we haven't had any sort of colleagues from the podcast verse. So
any people who are zero expertise in anything?
Yeah, you were our first zero expertise guest. So welcome.
That's awesome. We love to share our extensive lack of expertise on all subjects, so we're happy to do that here.
Yeah.
Well, you guys will fit right in. So tell us maybe a little bit about the Turtle Wars podcast and what it's all about, how you got started, and where folks can find you.
So, well, as far as where to find us, we have a website that technically I would say is probably still under development. Was it turtlewars.net? And that it has all the links to it and of all of our stuff, but it definitely needs a little bit of work. So it's a very bare bones website, but that is the best place to go because that has all the links to everything for me or Andy or anything. And then as far as the podcast itself, we don't really you guys, your podcast is all the WrestleManias. Is pretty straightforward. You talk about all the WrestleManias. And most podcasts seem to have some sort of a driving goal in that way, but me and Andy, we've known each other most of our lives, and we've spent a lot of time. We just sit around talking, and we feel that our conversations get pretty funny. And our families used to always say like, "Oh my gosh, you guys get going, you start talking, and after a while, it just sounds like because you guys are just talking so fast and laughing so hard." And so we were, in this age of podcasts, and we both listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff. And we're like, yeah. We're talking anyways, we should just record this. So that's pretty much our podcast, is just the conversation. Whatever the topic starts out as is never what the show ends up being about. So yeah, I guess if you had to classify our show, it's just pretty much me and Andy talking about whatever.
Rambling and tangents.
There you go.
It should be called that.
It's a good name.
Actually, yeah, maybe you should add it like after a colon, in sort of the true academic title fashion: Turtle Wars, Rambling and Tangents. So, I mean, I think it's fair to say you guys do a lot of say nerd culture kind of stuff, right? Comics and games and some sci-fi.
That is true. You could pinpoint us into leaning more towards stuff like that. Especially we don't ever really get into politics or anything real. Everything, I guess everything's pretty pop culture based.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a conversation on your show about the whole discussion about isn't wrestling fake, and we kind of talked about isn't everything fake, so why not talk about any of it, right? Who gives a shit?
Yeah, it's a very valid point. I do remember that.
Yeah, that's still, I think I said it in that episode. That's still, I was talking to someone, Tim was telling them about your podcast and everything, and we were talking about it, and I was like, it still blows my mind that almost anytime I talk to someone about wrestling and stuff, one of the first things people inevitably say seems to be like, that's not real. And I'm like, nothing that you watch on TV is real, right? You do get that. I don't see why you feel obligated to point that out every time.
There's a whole genre of television, like the reality TV, which is scripted. I think it's probably more heavily scripted and edited and all that. Well, definitely more edited than WrestleMania, because you can't edit in front of tens of thousands of people. Yeah, so that's it's much less real. Almost any reality show you can name has much less of an element of reality to it than professional wrestling.
I mean, you can't, like, are you gonna tell me that Walter White is real? Like, that's gonna be like, you're gonna
Exactly.
so like
Exactly.
you can have an entire
Yeah, that's
after show talking about an episode of Breaking Bad, but you can't discuss professional wrestling where, while the results are scripted and the storylines are driven, there's still the very real element of something horrible happening in the ring, or something gets confused or something, and they got to pivot on the spot to change. And those are those golden moments, or everything does go according to plan, and what you then get to watch is beautiful choreography. And that is pretty much what all of WrestleMania 3 is.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's one of the best shows out there, to be honest. And when we were on your show, you asked us about, what are some key matches that maybe people could watch who maybe don't have a whole lot of exposure, that would kind of sort of point the way towards, what they're missing. And Rich, because we haven't known each other as long as you guys have known each other, but we've definitely maybe spent as many hours talking about wrestling as you guys have spent talking about other things, and we both came up with like the same two matches like almost instantly, and they're both on this card, so that's sort of remarkable to find that kind of uniformity, or maybe we're just extra nerds, I don't know. So before we pivot to the show, I did want to ask about the name, the Turtle Wars. I don't think we actually talked about this last time, where that came from. I think it's great. I mean, it brings to mind Ninja Turtles, obviously, but then maybe that's not a fair jump to make. I don't know.
It's entirely fair.
It's pretty much straight up from the Ninja Turtles. When all growing up, Andy and I are both huge action figure collectors and Ninja Turtle fans, and actually, I think Andy and another friend of his from his younger days growing up started playing it, and we basically take all of your action figures into spare room in the house and set them all up and kind of have like a really intricate, like 3-week long, almost like a board game, except without any dice or anything. And since the predominant action figures that we all owned and mainly loved was the Ninja Turtles, then it just became called a Turtle War. And me and Andy, I'd say most of my best memories of childhood come from the Turtle Wars. So once we started talking about having a show, that just seemed like a no-brainer.
That's pretty awesome, I gotta say. People don't think enough about the veterans of the Turtle Wars. Like
Exactly.
We're always talking Greatest Generation this and Vietnam that. Where's the respect for the Turtle War vets?
Yeah, no, there was some real heroism there.
And Donatello was in the shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've had plenty of parades for the heroes.
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good.
Over the years. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The anthropologists will tell you, like, after training somebody to go off and do like the most antisocial thing you can do, which is to kill another human being, it's really important to have those rituals to bring people back into the culture so that they still feel cleansed and sort of accepted again. And that's where we went wrong with Vietnam, right? The people didn't get that thing. So it's good that you have parades for your turtles.
Yeah, exactly.
It's important to bring the action figures back into some sense of normalcy after what they endured.
My buddies and I, we were super into G.I. Joes, the little 3.5-inch guys. And my sister had this really elaborate dollhouse that my dad had gotten for her from some guy who used to build them. And we used to take it over and sort of run these like kind of diehard sort of scenarios with the G.I. Joes and the dollhouse figurines. And it was pretty rad, I gotta say.
You're not going to be surprised by this, but I had an entire wrestling federation that my G.I. Joes were for. If other kids in the neighborhood came over to play, they're soldiers, but immediately they're gone. It's all wrestlers. And there were heel turns, there was face turns, and they were, there was the standing champion that like carried the company, and it was very elaborate. The heel and face lines didn't go down the Joe and Cobra lines either. So
that's good. You mix it up.
All
that's
that
good.
stuff was thrown out.
So they were the GI Joes, but you were using them as to build your own wrestling world.
Yes, they were my entire wrestling world.
Nice, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you have a ring for
No, so they had a platform that was also the box that they all lived in,
them? Okay.
and they fought on the platform. There was no ring, and so there was tons of like super risky like high jumps off the platform on the people, and people breaking through the platforms and stuff. So
Yeah, it's dangerous. It's a dangerous sport.
Yeah.
That'd be very intense if all your matches, if you took the ropes away.
All right, are you guys ready to talk some wrestling?
Heck yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're talking with the Turtle Wars guys. This is WrestleMania 3 that we're getting into. This is from March 29th, 1987 from the Pontiac Silverdome in Pontiac, Michigan, just outside of Detroit. Attendance on this bad boy is a 93,173. That's disputed per Wikipedia. And there's a lot of discussion about how many people were there, how many tickets were comped, how many were blah, 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 blah. But 93,000-ish is pretty close, we think, and it's an attendance record that stood for a long, long time. The Pope actually ended up breaking it for a live indoor event. It took a long time, though. I think like 1999 was when it was finally overturned. The tagline on this one is bigger, better, badder, which I totally remember. So what we usually do is we'll throw to Rich to talk a little bit about some background and history, and then we'll kind of go through the matches one by one. So for this one, Andy and Jeff came over and hung out at my place a couple weekends ago on a Sunday night. My wife was very indulgent, and we had bean dip. It was delicious. We had some fresh vegetables, also delicious. We watched some wrestling. So we'll just kind of talk them through. But first, we'll toss it to Rich. And what kind of history do you want to talk about for this guy?
Well, we can. There's lots of angles going into WrestleMania 3. So at this point, the NWA really hasn't tried to throw an answer at them at WWF yet. They're not buying into the, oh yeah, you're going to take your New York, New England territory across the whole country, sure. Even though WrestleMania 2 was in 3 different events on 2 different coasts and in Chicago, and then WrestleMania 3 is in Detroit, which is nowhere really close to the WWF territory at the time. But the NWA is only doing Starrcade, and there's a big difference when you watch Starrcade to WrestleMania. And the Starrcades are mostly just supercard events. So when you say a supercard, it's more like it's just they put big names together to fight, not necessarily give them a reason to fight. WWF with WrestleMania is one of the first ones to put together the combo of having storylines leading into the mega card, super card concept. And honestly, with WrestleMania 3, I personally feel like they got it perfectly balanced. Every match has a reason. Every match has a story. Every match has a big time name in it. If you look at the card and think of the territories, you see a lot of matches of people that are known, that were famous before in different territories. So you have a Junkyard Dog and Harley Race. They're mostly known in the South, but here they are fighting in Detroit under the New England territory name. So like they're firing salvos. Coco Beware was out of the South, the Southern territories. King Kong Bundy as well. Iron Sheik was in Michigan, or not Michigan, but Minnesota with the AWA a bit before this, as was Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan got his legs under him in Minnesota before coming to WWF. So if you look at it that way, this is really WWF's kind of like subtle middle finger to all the other wrestling companies and wrestling. Like, we took all your names, we've given them a storyline, and we've put them on our biggest show in front of 93,000 people in a goddamn dome in Detroit.
Suck it, NWA.
Right.
So, all right. Yeah, so it's time to get into the event. The sun is out. The dome is open. It's Michigan in March or April or March. So it's probably a bit frosty. I don't know. So the inimitable, the incomparable Aretha Franklin does "America the Beautiful" to start us off. She sounds awesome. Vince McMahon apparently doesn't like the Star Spangled Banner, so he always has his events start with "America the Beautiful," which personally I'm in favor of.
It's a better song.
It's a better song. It's easier to sing, makes a little more sense. I don't know. Turtle Wars. You guys have a vote in this America the Beautiful versus Star Spangled Banner.
Like Star Spangled Banner, you don't need to know as much of the context. I mean, well, reverse that. America the Beautiful, you don't need to know the context behind it for it to make sense. Star Spangled Banner, if you heard it and had never heard of like the bombing of the fort in Baltimore and all that, and just didn't know what the background, you'd be like, what am I even listening to? Like, what's this? What's the song? What's this even about? Like, and how is it about my entire country and my life up to this point? Yeah. But in America the Beautiful, you get in like the lyrics tell the story. It's
a nice country.
So it's a more
got scenery,
song.
It's got green, it's got all this stuff.
Yeah, they tell you about it in the song. You don't need any background. You don't need any context to it. It's right there in the song. They're telling you everything you need to know.
I'd say regardless of what the song was, I think having Aretha Franklin singing was the right call.
True that. She should have done a mashup.
Yeah, she could have blended them together. Yeah, I feel like maybe listening to Star Spangled Banner and not knowing the War of 1812 stuff would be like listening to a Bruce Springsteen song and when you didn't like know what New Jersey was. You'd just be totally lost. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, all I can think about during this whole thing is that like there's fans just sitting like 2 feet away from her. They're like, they could touch her. They could play on the piano with her if they've reached really far. It's mind blowing to see that in modern context. Like they would never let you be that close to a performer, especially a performer on the level of Aretha Franklin at this time.
Yeah.
No, you're not getting anywhere close to her. And the opening video montage always gets me for this one because there's so many shots from downtown Baltimore. It's so nice to me. I see positive portrayals of Baltimore City. It starts with Fort McHenry, and we see down Light Street and Pratt Street, and we see the harbor while they're constructing. It's like video, I think, shooting down from the construction of the Gallery Place at the Inner Harbor. I enjoy it. It makes me happy every time. It's like, oh, look, there's someone that likes Baltimore. It's nice.
Yeah, you can't even see the rats from that high up.
I know. It's so nice.
So the opening match is a quick one. It's the Can-Am Connection, which is Rick Martel, Boo, and Tom Zank versus Cowboy Bob Orton and the Magnificent Morocco, who are managed by Mr. Fuji. The Can-Am Connection are in matching white trunks. They're the faces here. Good old Bob Orton, name from the past, and Magnificent Morocco, name from the annals of your steroids dealer, are here to have a good time. Did you guys have any thoughts about this match? Do you remember anything that happened here? It's a quick one.
Yeah, and maybe this was just my mind going to some kind of a stereotype or something that it shouldn't have gone to. But I thought that Mr. Fuji, not knowing who any of these individuals were this time, I thought he was going to take on all 4 of them. I thought it was just going to be this guy with the cane, this dapper-looking gentleman with the cane was just going to whip everyone else in the ring.
But I thought the same thing. When I had to ask you, Tim, I was like, "Is he this?" And you said, "No, he's the manager." I was like, "Oh man," because he started to step out of the ring. I was like, "Wait a minute, where's he going?"
I mean, don't be fooled. Mr. Fuji could whip everyone's ass in that ring at that time. He was a genuine badass.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's why I was sad to see him.
Yeah, the last episode we did is actually from '84. Mr. Fuji was in the ring, throwing down, whooping up on some people. So nice. Yeah, I don't know. There's maybe not a whole lot to talk about here. Rick Martel had a pretty solid career. He became the model. He tag teamed with Tito Santana. Tom Zank is sort of
the Z-Man.
Yeah, he came.
The Z-Man over in NWA.
Well, he came back in WCW in the 90s, I think, as a Z-Man too, right?
Yeah.
And I was telling the guys about Bob Orton and his sort of cast trick.
The perpetual broken arm. It's amazing. The thing never heals. He won't stay off of it. It just will never set right. And
He needs more calcium in his diet, clearly.
It's actually not a bad idea. Always be ready for self-defense. I mean, you got a cast on, you're ready to whop someone.
Supposedly that's how Ted Bundy got some people into his van, right? Anyway, that's different. So never mind.
So that's how he got people to wrestle him in the ring. Is that look, I've got my arms broken. No, I'm not going to choke you to death. My arm's broken. You're not going to. You'll be fine.
I'm just here with my broken arm. So no, these guys move fast. There's kind of a dirty finish there. I always think that Martel looks like Scott Baio a little bit, which kind of weirds me out.
Yeah, I could see that. I definitely could see that.
Now, as we get into the matches and the wrestlers in each match, it brings up a question that I had is like the share of, I don't want to use the term market share because that's too much in economics, but like WWF in that period of time as a kid growing up, that was the only show that I knew about wrestling wise. Like what was their share of, the most popular wrestlers, share of eyeballs, or however you want to put it, versus the other promotions or whatever else was out there.
So WWF is has the NBC show at this point that would occasionally substitute for SNL. And so that's the only show at this time that has nationwide network coverage, which in the early 80s is a big deal because, cable wasn't widespread yet. Satellite was for the people that had a bit more money because you had to install a freaking satellite dish in your backyard. So WWF definitely was dominant. The only thing that at this point that was pushing on them was WCW was on TBS and was visible, for those that had cable and satellite on the Superstation. And I think the Superstation was over the air in some areas as well. So you could catch them. I definitely watched them as well because my parents were early adopters of cable. Bless them. Oh my God. But and then it's not until like either the late 80s or early 90s that the AWA shows up on ESPN. So it's really just WWF and WCW, NWA at this point that has widespread appeal and draw. Everything else is just on like local television stuff. So like if you can imagine like the Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler stuff just happened on like local network television. Like it's like it's just over the air on your aerial if you're within 100 miles of Memphis. That's it.
I guess that explains it. Having not had cable at the time, why the WWF would have seemed like the only thing wrestling had going on.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that was Vince McMahon's sort of genius, and also kind of his evil. he broke up those systems of territories, and all those folks that operated for a couple of decades, sort of dividing up the areas among them. It's like, all right, you've got from like Oklahoma to the edge of Louisiana, right? And we don't mess with you, you don't mess with us. Occasionally, we'll swap some people back and forth, et cetera, et cetera. And once Vince took over from his father, he's like, yeah, fuck all that. I'm going to get cable, and I'm going to like push my product into all of these areas, and then they won't be able to sell tickets, and eventually they'll sell to me. And that's exactly what happened. So it's weird. It seems like it's sort of a Walmart kind of thing, right? And like it's capitalism on a smaller scale or on a particular industry scale, and it's sad, but it also kind of seems like inevitable. You know what I mean?
Right. And placement is also key. He had New York City. That's the big town. That's he's booking normal shows at Madison Square Garden once a month. Once a month you can go down to MSG and see Hulk Hogan and Junkyard Dog and Macho Man and Tito Santana. You can see all these big names. And it's not a coincidence that like NBC broadcasts out of New York, like he's already got these natural connections that are just because they're in the same city and he's their geographic thing, and so he can shove their product down their throat and be like, look, we got the superior wrestling product. And we just watched that show from 1984, and that's just a local New York broadcast over the MSG network, and it looked better on television than any of these NWA shows that we watched that came up to like 10 years later, just because the production values, and New York City is a big reason for
They
that.
just have more money to spend. Yeah. All right, we got it. Remember what we said about keep it moving so we don't
Wait, we're talking about WrestleMania 3?
Someone's got to work in the morning, man. Match number 2 was Billy Jack Haynes. You guys might remember him as the dude with Oregon written across his butt versus Hercules, who you might remember as the guy with the chains who does the promo where he seems to suggest that he's a mythological figure. I can't quite remember. Hercules is managed by the great Bobby the Brain Heenan. It's a singles match. I don't know. This is a boring one. Did you guys catch anything from this one that you that stood out?
I liked, the whole using the chains at the end of the match and everything. But I think, like you said, that's what really stood out to me is when he's doing his intros and talking and everything. And I think one of us were talking and like I was listening sort of out of the side of my ear, and I was like, wait a minute, did he just say he's actually Hercules, like the real Hercules from? And so that's
he just threw it in there like as an aside.
Yeah, by the way, I'm immortal.
Like, oh, by the way, I'm the other Hercules.
Yeah.
He talks about, so he's got a chain around his neck, which clearly came from the True Value hardware. And he says, quote, that his chains are from thousands of years ago when I used them to pull down the pillars of Rome. That wasn't Hercules, first of all. That's not him. I think with the pulling down the pillars, he's probably referencing Samson, but that also wasn't Rome.
That's what I thought of, yeah.
Also fictional. So who knows?
I guess you can't really say what pillars the real Hercules did or did not pull down, considering whether they're not there. That would get you into the whole whether or not there was a real Hercules. So maybe he was onto something, or maybe he was just kind of talking at his other end. But it's hard to say. Hard to get inside his head.
He had a gimmick that he stood out.
Oh yeah, he's leaning into it for sure. So the other thing going on in this match is both of these guys claim to be, quote, the master of the full Nelson. So their finishing move is, you guys may remember this from your junior high wrestling, where you just put the full Nelson on the guy. It's the world's most boring finishing move. So there's a lot of them just taking turns putting that on, and me taking a nap in between.
You may also remember the hold from when they steal your lunch money. It's the same hold, and everybody knows that Bobby Lashley is the master of the full Nelson.
He hasn't been born yet, so that's not fair.
Yeah, no. So this is our early appearance of Dave Hebner, the referee. I'm one of these guys that pays attention to the referee a little bit. So Dave Hebner has a twin brother, Earl Hebner. He's the more famous one out of the brothers, but he hasn't come to WWF yet, and he's going to debut soon after this, to where they're identical twins, and they're going to switch, and Earl is crooked and costs Hulk Hogan the belt after 4 years. But
I assume that it's in their genes that they're both super easily distracted by anything else out of the ring.
Yes. It is a Hebner trait, and that's why they're professional wrestling.
A lot of people don't know, actually, when you go to audition for being a ref, like part of it is they take one of those like laser pointers and they flash it and they see how distractible you are, and you're like, oh, then it's like, oh, you're in.
Yeah, they're like, here, like, you got one job, okay? What's that over there?
Pay attention to these two giant dudes in the ring. What? Oh, mirrors.
Yeah.
Huh? Squirrel.
Pay attention to what the other 90-some thousand people here are looking at. Don't be the one person not looking.
This match is also where we see the little ring car for the first time in WrestleMania 3. And it kind of cuts the edge off of some things. So like, you just beat the tar out of Billy Jack Haynes and then get on your little ring car go-kart and get driven away. The edge is taken off, a little
I feel
bit.
like the little ring cart should
But
make like farting noises as it goes up the aisle.
I kind of want the autograph of the driver. I'm not going to lie. Like if he showed up at the next Celeb Fest, I'm getting in his line. I'll pay $20 for him.
I think it added something to it. Sort of kind of like a parade float feel sometimes. The way they the various wrestlers were kind of grandstanding and that kind of thing as they rode out.
They definitely took full advantage of the camera work and using the drama of that little cart. And that little cart has a very important reason. And that reason is because Andre the Giant didn't have the stamina to make it all the way from the locker room to the ring. And so their solution was if he could walk as far as to get on the cart, they would drive him to the ring. And so they're like, it'd be weird if we didn't do it for everybody. So let's just drive everybody to the ring in a little
Although
cart.
not everybody uses it, some of the more energetic guys just fucking sprint. All right, last thing I mentioned about this match. This is the first color we get on this card. Maybe is this the only? Maybe
I think it's the only blood on this show.
Hercules wraps the chain around his fist and pops good old Billy Jack right in the forehead.
Yeah,
which guys,
that was
that was pretty exciting, huh?
Yeah.
So we talked when the guys we talked a little bit about blading and how all that works, and so we're breaking them in, exposing the business.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a fun one. This is a 6-man mixed tag team match. You've got 2 little people on a side and 1 monster dude on each side. So on the face side, you've got good old hillbilly Jim, who's a good old boy in overalls, with the Haiti Kid and Little Beaver.
Beaver.
Versus on the heel side, you got King Kong Bundy with Little Tokyo and Lord Littlebrook. And just a note too that these guys, some of these little people wrestlers have been active since like the 40s at this point, like decades of matches and just unbelievable careers. So I definitely recommend looking them up.
Yeah, Little Beaver is 52 in this match, and this is his very last match.
He's the guy that gets squashed. Spoiler alert.
Yeah,
guys are pretty good being that old.
Yeah. This match is enjoyable for what it is. There's a lot of punches to the boiler, and King Kong Bundy gets referred to as a condominium with legs.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of beaver all over the place, and then he gets Bundy squashes him, big old disqualification, and you get this amazing dramatic shot. This is the first one of this show of the many dramatic shots. This amazing shot of Hillbilly Jim carrying a limp and lifeless Little Beaver back on his cart. It pulls at the heartstrings. Oh, yeah, so sad.
I remember having a brief conversation when we watched it about some aspect of it not aging well, but I think just as far as the drama and the choreography and the way the whole thing played out, it was one of the more memorable matches to me.
Yeah, it really is. It's pretty remarkable. Hillbilly Jim like kind of faded away, but he was super over for a long time. He was kind of like the hillbilly Hulk Hogan. Like he was like all the kids loved him.
Mm-hmm.
The other fun thing about this match is that Mr. Baseball Bob Uecker comes out on commentary, so he makes a lot of the commentary about people getting hit in the boiler, which I think he means balls. I'm not sure though. Did you guys have any other thoughts on this match? I don't know. It's kind of a trip. I enjoy it actually.
Yeah, I mean it was entertaining. Is that having the guys team up with little people and come out is that still something that's done in modern day wrestling?
No, the last time I can remember like serious like use of little people, I know there was some other stuff after it, but the most recent one that I can think of was in the mid 90s with Jerry Lawler he had a crew of 3 little people, and then there was Doink versus Doink the Clown, who had 3 little people also with him, Doink, Dink, and I want to say dunk and donk or something like that. It was like, and it was totally ridiculous and over the top. And it has a payoff at a Survivor Series, and it's probably the worst match on that Survivor Series, sadly. So it just didn't have the comic relief that this one had, but also those guys just weren't quite as skilled as these veterans. Like Lord Littlebrook and Little Tokyo and Little Beaver and the Haiti Kid are like, they're I don't know, Hulk Hogan level in Little People Wrestling.
Yeah, Haiti Kid, by the way, is still around, still kicking. He showed up on the WWE like interview thing not that long ago. Maybe it was on that 360 days or whatever it was called, that documentary we talked about.
Oh yeah, maybe on 350 days. Yeah, I think he was on that.
Yeah, 350 days. Yeah, I think sometimes on the indie shows, or I think maybe especially in Lucha Libre in Mexico, you may still get like Little People tag matches. Not mixed, but just straight. So
just a little bit.
Well,
I guess my last question on that would be that you guys know of, has there ever been a instance of a wrestler who was a little person who went up against a regular full size behemoth of a guy, but without being teamed up with another giant guy or something, like just one who stood on their own?
I've never seen it, but I'm sure it's probably happened. But the reason why that would be very unlikely is just because at this time period, kayfabe was a thing. And so if you're trying to sell tickets to get butts and seats, you need to have matches that come off as believable. Sure. And no one's going to believe 400-pound King Kong Bundy versus 100-pound Little Beaver one-on-one. Like, no one's going to buy that. No one's going to believe that it's realistic and buy tickets to see it.
That makes sense.
I'd say in the early 2000s, there was a wrestler they called Hornswoggle, who was sort of a leprechaun gimmick. I don't know if you remember that at all. And at various times he was supposed to be Vince McMahon's illegitimate child, and he was teamed with an Irish wrestler named Finlay, and he was involved in a lot of stuff. Actually, we saw him in one of those autograph shows not too long ago. It's quite possible he had a match with like
Big Show. I think he might have actually had a one-on-one against Big Show.
Yeah.
This is something for our research department.
Yeah, we'll get on that.
Okay.
So we don't have a research department.
No, that's me tomorrow.
While you're supposed to be working.
Yeah.
All right, next match is Junkyard Dog versus the King Harley Race.
Bobby we got to back up. You're jumping over a Macho Man and Elizabeth promo with Mary Hart.
Sorry.
Oh my God.
I forgot. Go for it.
So like Mary Hart wants to interview Elizabeth, and like Macho Man immediately steps in, blocks the camera, like, "You're not talking to Elizabeth. You got to talk to me, the Macho Man," and like just takes over everything, and that he's not capable of sharing the spotlight. And then he ends the promo by saying that his phone number is on the back of his license plate.
What does that even mean?
No idea. And then you're going to also jump over the Junkyard Dog promo that happened before this match, man. You can't skip this stuff. This is the stuff that makes this special.
We were eating bean dip. We didn't take notes.
Oh my God.
I'm sorry.
Oh my God. This country never had no king, queen. The only time I've been told to bow down to anyone was my parents telling me to bow to the man above. You missed this poetry from Junkyard Dog, man. You can't.
I do remember that speech, that line.
You can't skip it. You can't just blow by that stuff, man.
And not even for bean dip.
No, I don't like beans. I don't like bean dip. So
what? All right, podcast over.
No,
we're not friends anymore.
Fine.
Look, Jeff's sister made some amazing bean dip, and the Harris Teeter made some amazing cupcakes. We didn't have time for all this writing notes.
I'll gladly just eat the plain tortilla chips. Thank you.
You made more than enough mental notes.
Junkyard Dog is a man of the people. He's down with the proletariat.
You grab them cakes. God damn, I love that song.
You guys have any memories of the JYD? Do you remember seeing him before?
Yeah, and they did have that aspect to this match that I think was one of the what made it kind of memorable is that whole the junkyard dog and the 'cause I wasn't familiar with the character that he was not the character the individual that he wrestled in this match. That was the first time it had been introduced to him. So they went for like opposite extremes here, in it almost I'd say pseudo political sense or something, which gave it an interesting. Obviously, decades later, you can't touch something like that with a 10-foot pole before you end up creating all kinds of animosity and stuff. But to see that in like I guess a more almost innocent era, this sort of the man of the people versus this guy is sort of a like on a this gilded god in his own mind sort of character or sort of person. That to me is what stood out about the match.
The race aspect to this match, definitely they know about it. It's intentionally done, I believe. So it's supposed to be kind of a class war as well as like just Harley Race is the king, and like he's kind of like a goofy king, like a evil bad king, and I wonder if they did that as like kind of just like a little jab at the NWA because he's a former NWA world champion. Ric Flair's took the belt off of him for Ric Flair's first world championship. So you got that, and then Junkyard Dog was unbelievably like the most popular wrestler in like Mississippi, Louisiana territories and Florida territories, which knowing their history with race relations down there is very surprising. Like he broke color barriers kind of, even though like it wasn't like it was segregated, but like for someone to be African American, to be as popular and over as Junkyard Dog was down there, and then so before he came to WWF, he used Another One Bites the Dust as his entrance music. So he's using music by Queen coming in down in the South, and he is the most popular wrestler ever to them.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, actually, there's a pretty good biography. It's called King of New Orleans about his time. He used to just fill the, I guess, what was the Superdome, whatever the previous equivalent was, downtown New Orleans. Anytime he was in town, he was a big deal. So he's a lot of fun. I like that his pants say thump. He like his grab them cakes music.
Yeah,
he does a lot of headbutts. Like one of the gimmicks is that his head is extraordinarily hard for some reason. I'm not sure if that's racist or not. I don't know. It's weird enough to like maybe only be kind of racist. I'm not sure.
And, the whole dog, like the dog persona, because he gets on all fours and everything. And I was like, okay, wait a second, is he gonna try to bite this dude? But then I think the headbutt is just, to me, it just seemed like a stand-in for what would have been an illegal bite.
Yeah, he does like a crawling headbutt.
Yeah.
Leading with his head.
I mean, before the match, he does say, "Just as sure as I'm black, the day is sunny." So, like, race is definitely playing into this. Like they're playing it up. That's the whole point of this match. There's not much to the match, but it's great storytelling. Again, with this match, there's, Junkyard Dog humiliates Harley Race multiple times with Harley missing the big headbutts, the dropping headbutts and face planting constantly, and then hitting him with the crawling headbutt while he's down on the ground and stuff. There's some subtlety and art to the presentation of this match that can just blow by if you're just eating bean dip and cupcakes and not really paying attention to what's happening on the show. Co-host.
Yeah. I feel like I'm being judged right now. I don't appreciate it.
Some of it was pretty subtle, but I give him credit for not shying away from that aspect of it of the match.
Yeah, they definitely lean into it. So this is a loser must bow match. So in theory, whoever loses has to like whatever bow and to the winner. And JYD loses, but instead of bowing, he just takes the chair to good old Harley Race, which is a perfect finish. It allows everybody to feel good about it, right? Like the racists are like, "Oh yeah, he beat that black guy," and then everybody else is like, "Yeah, but fuck that guy. He's using the chair on him anyway." I thought it was a good finish, honestly. So
there's a scary spot in this match. I this was the first time I noticed it. So there's a point to where Harley gets dumped through the ropes out of the ring, and it's kind of close to the corner. And as he's tumbling down off the apron to the floor, his head comes dangerously close to the steel steps, and you can see Bobby Heenan slide his hand in there and catch Harley Race's head. And if he didn't do that, the back of Harley Race's head was going to catch right on the corner of the steel steps. I recommend rewinding, watching that little bit, and see if you can catch it.
Damn.
It's scary. Like, I never noticed it before, and like I had to rewind it a couple times to be like, wow, Heenan saved Harley Race's life in this match.
good looking out, Bobby. Good looking out.
That would have sucked.
All right, so moving on. I didn't mention also that Fabulous Moolah is also here as a another valet / manager for Harley
Crown
Race.
Jewels.
Yeah. Everybody in this match is dead, by the way. Just thought I'd point that out.
Oh, no.
So, sorry, didn't mean to bring everybody down. There's an absolutely bonkers Hulk Hogan promo next. Bonkers. Like, I don't know what the fuck this guy's talking about.
They said it.
What the fuck is this guy talking about?
They said it was his last ride. He was out banging and hanging. You gotta live and die and face the truth. To beat Hulk Hogan, Andre will need to beat everyone. If the dirty air doesn't kill you, the politicians will.
What?
And I think
it's more the way he says it.
Yeah, he channels the Ultimate Warrior or something here. Like, it's
what kind of right winger cares about air pollution, Hulkster? Did you guys know what he was talking about? Tangin' and banging is the phrase that I keep coming back to. I think it must have something to do with weightlifting. That's the only thing I can think of. Hulk Hogan has 3 hobbies: weightlifting, steroids, and racism. Those are his 3 hobbies.
Yeah.
Yes. Trying to imagine him, like, how he fits into the regular world outside of. I mean, is this like at the like when he's having dinner with family or whatever, and they want him to pass the butter? Is there a tirade like every time it happens where, like, by the end of it he's on a completely different subject than any that doesn't even make sense and has no relevance to the real world? Or is there? I mean, can he function as a normal human?
You imagine him trying to order like a pound of ham at the deli counter?
Yeah, really.
Like what is going on, sir? This is a Wendy's.
Yeah,
I would say he definitely found his calling.
Yeah,
he starts hulking up when they tell him that they're out of like hamburger rolls and like,
yeah, really,
brother, like just gets worked up. He's gotta recover.
It was pro wrestling or street preacher. Those were the options.
yeah.
Yep.
I want to say he was actually the front man of a rock and roll band.
I think he played guitar.
Yeah.
Actually, I think that he was a half-ass guitarist, and then he became a full-fledged steroidal maniac.
Yeah, like as most wrestlers at this time period, he came out of the bar scene either as a musician that really wanted to become a wrestler and bodybuilder, or they were a bouncer at the bar, and the guy that owns the local wrestling school is like, you should come and wrestle. You come meet me at a barn in -30 degrees tomorrow morning. And you do it because why not?
Yeah. You sold it.
It's like, well, in that case, right?
Exactly.
All right. Yeah. So Hulk Hogan goes off to harangue the valet or whatever he's going to do. I don't know. And we get the Dream Team next, which is Brutus Beefcake versus Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Your favorite?
One of my personal favorites. Yeah. Good old Greg with Dino Bravo and Luscious Johnny Valiant. I don't know why they have so many damn people with them. Versus the Rougeau brothers, good old Jacques and Raymond from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. So like, this is there's some top-notch talent in this match.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. Do you guys remember any of these faces familiar? The only one I could think maybe would be Brutus, who might ring a bell.
I don't. I mean, for me, not before the match, but I remember wishing that I could come up with some reason to have the word luscious in my name.
It's not too late, Jeff.
Yeah, it's never too late. That could be your entire. We could do that right now.
Yeah, just going down to City Hall. Just drop your last name. Just be Luscious Jeff.
So you change your first name to your last name.
That'd be awesome.
Oh, man.
I definitely want to be friends if you did that.
At some point,
Like right now, I'm kind of on the fence, but if like that was
once I become luscious, that'll seal the deal.
but then
and Andy, you could be Hammer Andy.
Yeah,
Hammer Andy.
You'd almost have to get into pro wrestling at that point, though. You'd almost have to go out there and wrestle. Like you can't have a name like that and not that next thing you know, you'd be seeing me in these like lucha matches and stuff.
You could also become a snowboarder, I think.
Yeah, I guess it would work okay for that. I don't know about luscious. Like I think it sounds more of a wrestling.
Or a bum fighter.
You
can do a bum fighting.
All great ideas.
Hey, don't fight the homeless, ladies and gentlemen. We don't condone that on this show. No. Yeah, so let's see. There's a lot of chaos in this match.
Oh my God. I don't remember so much trash being thrown when I watched this the last time. Like people, I guess they've had enough time to get a couple beers in them and they're just throwing their shit. They don't it's insane how out of control this crowd is at this point.
So what is it specifically at these wrestlers, or were they just like they didn't like these guys move to the next match, or
they don't like the Dream Team and they're drunk. They're starting to get drunk because it's Detroit in March.
Yeah, it's Michigan. They're drunk all the time.
This is Brutus's face turn. This is the first half of it, at least I should say. And so a lot of things that comes out of Brutus the Barber Beefcake happens at this.
So Brutus is from I think he's from Florida originally.
Yeah, the last time we saw him, he was from parts unknown.
Yeah, parts unknown. He's from fucking Tampa.
Yeah, they know where he's from now.
Unknown Tampa.
Yeah. He's also billed from right around this time. He was also billed from San Francisco, and he's got like the fishnets. And I think they were sort of subtly hinting that Brutus might be gay. There's like this whole kind of 80s sort of thing going on, but that's not ever come out. So the big thing that happens in this match is Dino Bravo, who kind of gets himself involved in this match, and then sort of splits off with Greg the Hammer, and they leave Brutus in the ring to be jumped by both Rougeau brothers, and that's not good. You don't want to have to fight two Canadians at the same time. Everybody knows that. And so so that gets the crowd on Brutus's side and kind of sets him up for what happens in the next match there.
Yeah, I do remember this one descending a bit into chaos in the last toward the end there.
Yeah, and then it doesn't make sense. I don't understand why they just suddenly leave Brutus behind in the ring, but they do, and now he's a good guy. Everybody likes him.
That's all that matters.
He's like the ugly duckling. You feel bad for him.
Just a side note: Dino Bravo is a fascinating guy, and I highly recommend watching his Dark Side of the Ring episode about him and his mob ties and his mysterious murder.
Oh, wow.
It's not all that mysterious. He was shot like 12 times in the head.
They don't know who did it, though.
That aspect of it, like the cause of death is not mysterious.
No.
Certain other
he had was it a cousin? He had a close family member who was like basically running like the Montreal mob. And it was sort of like, well, anytime you want to get out of this wrestling business and come to work, you know where we are. And eventually the wrestling thing dried up and he went to work, and, shit happens, right? So you guys have seen the movies. You know what happens. So,
yeah. And the Montreal mob, if I were to join any mob, I'd want to join an alliterative one like that.
Yeah, they're a good one. Yeah. They're a good one. The closest thing to a European city on this continent,
Learn a lot of French swear words and threats.
Those little tiny cigarettes.
It's too much split pea soup for me.
Yeah. They got all the healthcare, though.
Mm. Yeah.
That's when you get shot by your best buddy. All right. Next up, Rowdy Piper God, what a gem, versus the adorable Adrian Adonis,
And an
who's
amazing,
managed by Jimmy Hart.
amazing promo. Don't skip it.
Yep.
By Hot Rod.
It's Hot Rod's transphobic promo here.
You think Hot Rod is going to be humiliated by someone who wears a dress? No retreat, no surrender. No. I mean, the irony is not lost that he's wearing a kilt.
So I remember finding Rowdy Roddy Piper to be a memorable wrestler mainly because of the name and the kilt. But I learned over the course of this that there was more to him than that. That he was a prominent kind of top level guy for a while there.
Yeah, I mean he was Hulk Hogan's main nemesis for a bit, and he was always an asshole, even when he was a face. Like he was amazing as a heel, as a bad guy, and because he just had that like smarmy kind of smart ass, like just absolute contempt for everybody. And they made him into a face at one point, and he got really popular. But like, for me, it was never quite the same. Like,
Roddy Piper is one of those guys. So like, whenever you hear interviews of wrestlers talking about whether they preferred being babyface or heel, they would almost always say heel because it's easier. They'd say because they can say whatever they want. When they're the good guy, they got to be more controlled. It's normally the good guy that controls the storyline through the promos and stuff. Meanwhile, heel Ric Flair can go out there and call himself Space Mountain and offer mustache rides and stuff like that. Like, the good guy can't do that. But Piper, even when he was a good guy, he didn't give a crap about what he said and would just fly off the handle on people. And especially like when he wrestles Bret Hart later, he cuts some genuinely passive aggressive, friendly promos, but there's such deep cuts on Bret and his family that he's being a dick at the same time.
Yeah.
I bet Luscious Jeff could offer mustache rides and get away with it.
Let's see what I can do.
Come on, ladies. Come on down.
Luscious Jeff's mustache rides.
Luscious Jeff's mustache
he could
rides.
be a carnival barker.
That's right.
First one's free. You won't need a second.
So I'd never make any money.
So that's all right.
I don't think
That's how you get
making the
him
money
hooked.
is the purpose here.
Yeah. So adorable Adrian Adonis here is billed at 298 pounds. This is relatively late in his career. He's not looking great. He's wearing the world's largest pair of granny panties I've ever seen. If you took all the underwears from a Tom Jones show now, like not in the 60s, and stitched them together, that's the underwear that he's wearing. This is one that when my wife watched it with me, like the whole time she was just worried about his junk coming out. I'm like,
He's a weird looking guy.
yeah.
I mean, this is what surprised me though, is I expected him to come out here being, kind of in Andre the Giant situation, like barely being able to walk across the ring. But this dude is jumping over the top rope and flipping onto the floor. And I mean, how old was he at the time?
He wasn't that old.
He's fucking good, is what he is. He was born in, hold on, 53. So he's what, 80, 30.
31, right? What? 30, no, okay. 34, yeah. Math.
Well, I mean, so regardless, I'd have to put it out there that just based on the shape he looked to be in, I was more impressed by his performance than anyone else who was in there.
This is actually one of his last matches in WWF, and actually one of the last matches of his life. But he gets released from the WWF shortly after this because of his weight. And they want him, and he actually goes off to the AWA and loses 100 pounds. And they're like, I mean, it's the 80s. He loses 100 pounds in like 3 months. Yeah. It's some fen-phen. It's some probably some meth, probably some cocaine. Good cocktail happening.
It's not good for the heart.
No, and he comes back to the East Coast expecting to get signed by the WWF, and he's driving to a show with some other wrestlers in a car, and they're driving towards the sun, and the driver supposedly gets blinded by the sun, suddenly sees a moose in the road, swerves, and goes off a bridge.
Oh, jeez.
A moose? Wow.
And that is
messed-
Adrian's sad passing. He had gotten himself
That's
in
messed up.
shape. He's ready to come back, ready to work some more. Cars are the biggest cause of death for wrestlers.
Wow.
So anyway, yeah. So these guys really go at it. Like they whip each other with the belt, and like you guys were asking me about. All right, is that is that real? Is that part gimmick? And like no, like they're actually hitting each other because actually you can see the stripes on their backs after exchanging those belt shots.
Yeah.
And you can't pull that. You can pull your hand back, but you can't. Once that belt is let loose, it's going to find the target.
Yeah, thanks, Dad.
That's one of the secrets in the business here is that they use a super wide belt. So apparently, the super wide belt makes a better sound but hurts less. And so that's actually why they would use something like that. And so, I know
so let's see. You looked like you were going to say something there, Andy.
I was just going to say the overall, just an overall comment on the match. This is where, and I guess this is leading up into the later part of the show, and where for me it seemed to get my attention more, just in terms of the talent and the everything that you put into a match, the talent, choreography, the energy that went into it, and everything. This is where the whole WrestleMania 3 started to really get my attention in terms of just the production, the whole thing they had going on.
Yeah, this is the theater. This match. They don't enforce any of the rules. You can't whip your opponent with a belt in the ring legally. You can't do hardly any of the things that they do in this match. This is a complete blow off. The ref is pointless in this match. He's basically just a timekeeper. He's telling them how much time they got to kill on the card, until they got to get out of the ring.
We got a little rundown from Tim while we were watching it on just what rules were being broken throughout this.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Didn't realize there were so many.
We talked about some of the rules that are in the rule book, which doesn't exist, but that some people, some matches they ignore some of them, some matches they ignore all of them, some matches they decide to enforce all or most of them. It's kind of arbitrary depending on what they are trying to do with the story and and advancing the whatever plot that they got going on.
Right. So this one is kind of like, there's no way in hell you're going to control Roddy Piper, so you might as well just let him go. These two hate each other so much. Just let them get it out of their system here in the ring. This is one of those matches that has a rare finish of the 3 arm drops. Like the opponent is actually out in the old 80s style, lifting the arm to see if it falls. And Adrian drops, and then Brutus, for some reason, grabs the clippers, starts shaving. And this is also where Brutus grabs the gardening shears that Adrian Adonis has. That now becomes part of his gimmick, which is weird. I don't understand that transition. I don't get it, but he's Brutus the Barber now, whether we like it or not.
As if the name Brutus Beefcake from Parts Unknown was not enough. Now he's Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
I would go to him for a haircut just with that name.
Yeah. If only he had stuck around a couple more years, he probably could have been Luscious Brutus the Barber Beefcake.
Yeah, Luscious Beefcake. That's a barber I'd go to.
Luscious Beefcake. Oh my God.
Pretty certain there was a dancer at my wife's bachelorette party with that name.
Didn't have any shears.
Someone here order pizza?
Order a beefcake.
Extra sausage? Anyway,
Ooh.
sorry. Jesse Ventura comes out in a rattlesnake skin vest, primarily to plug Predator, the movie, I think. There's not really much else that he does.
He just wanted to be announced as a racist. That's all.
Good old Jesse. Next up is the Hart Foundation, Bret the Hitman Hart, my favorite, and Jim the Anvil Neidhart. They're with Danny Davis, the renegade referee, with Jimmy Hart as their manager, versus the British Bulldogs and Tito Santana, with Matilda the Bulldog as their manager / mascot. So the background on this one, and I was explaining this one to the guys, is that Danny Davis had been a referee and then sort of got all devious and helped the Hart Foundation beat the British Bulldogs and get their titles. And so the WWE suspended him from wrestling for life plus, what did they say? Life
10
plus
years. Life plus 10 years. Yeah. Just in case you dig his corpse up and put him in the ring, he still can't referee until 11 years after his death.
So for a very short period of time, they put him in this kind of like extra tight ref jersey and let him pretend to wrestle, even though he's clearly not a trained wrestler. They bring him in to do one or two moves and take him back out again. And then, somebody thought that would be an interesting angle, but they were wrong. But
the biggest angle out of this match is just Matilda going after Jimmy Hart, which I'm pretty certain
rad.
I heard a story that they like coated his like boots with like dog food or something to get Matilda to do that. And then Jesse Ventura kidnapping her for no reason at all. This dog napping the Matilda here, and my heart breaks. I want the pup back.
Yeah, that was terrible. Just like we were anti-bum fighting, we are anti-dog napping. It's one of the things we take a stand against on this show. It's one of the reasons we broadcast, to be raise awareness. So are you guys pro or anti-dog napping on Turtle Wars?
I would say strongly against, strongly opposed.
I was going to say strongly for.
Oh, you're in favor.
I support all. I support all sorts of animal abduction and abuse.
Well, his name is Luscious, so it's obviously he's the bad guy here. He's the heel commentator of this team, and so
That's right.
he supports
I got Andy's Morty right here. I'm about to abduct him.
Ready, Morty? So maybe instead of you could be Luscious Jeff the dog catcher. Like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Not as a wrestling name, but just that's what you would do as Luscious Jeff.
Yeah, no, we're definitely
put it on your van.
We're definitely against all sorts of any sort of animal cruelty.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to cut that out of context and send it to your boss or anything. Yeah.
Exactly.
And this is the match where like Gorilla Monsoon is really starting to get worked up. He's breaking into the flow of the program and really just really starting to talk. He loves Tito Santana so much. He just is singing his praises through the whole match. And he's also already calling Bret Hart the excellence of execution, which is like Bret's big tagline through his entire career.
Is this where it came from?
Yeah.
Or were they already?
I think Gorilla was already calling him that, but Gorilla came up with it, just like Gorilla started calling The Undertaker the Phenom. So that's where like that whole thing came from too. So like there's a lot of Gorilla Monsoon had a huge influence on the WWF and still does to this day, even though he's been dead for several years now.
He's that guy who's always making up nicknames for people.
Yeah. The Chunger is one of my favorite ones by him.
Hey, Luscious Jeff, what's up?
Yeah. Gorilla Monsoon, that's another really good name.
That's a great name. It's a great name. He also is talking about how he's always advocated for 6-man tags to have multiple referees. I don't think that. I
don't think he's ever advocated for that. Anything else about these guys? Like, I think, like you said, the dog napping is pretty much the whole show.
Yeah.
Did they ever follow up on that storyline?
Jesse Ventura is still stuck with Matilda right now.
She's 40 years old. She's furious about it.
The only other thing I would note is that Danny takes a vicious pile driver from Davey Boy Smith. And I just recently read that or Dynamite Kid was actually hurt during this match, and that's why he's like barely ever in. But
yeah, he just kind of stands in the corner for most of the thing. And Davey does most of the heavy lifting. Oh, and Tito, of course. I don't know if you guys if you haven't listened to much of the show, Tito Santana is another one of our favorites. He's like the consummate good guy. He never turned heel.
Right.
He just always seemed like a good dude. Like he would pick you up at the airport for sure. Like he wouldn't even ask you for gas money. He would just come get you.
And I am getting tired of him standing me up at these autograph things. I've now been to 2 of these shows where he was billed to be there and he doesn't show up the day of. I'm
too busy picking someone up at the airport.
He probably is waiting at the airport for me to come get him. And no,
he had to cut his neighbor's grass that morning, or get a cat out of the tree, or whatever. I don't know. I mean, he spent 40 years being a good guy. Now it's time for a little Tito time.
Yeah,
well, self-care is important. Next up, it's the Natural, Butch Reed, who actually passed away in the time between when we did this on the blog and when we watch it this most recent time, and he's managed by Slick versus the Birdman. Coco Beware. Coco got his buddy Parrot Frankie the Parrot. We're pretty sure that Coco's music is by Morris Day and the Time.
Yeah.
Which is pretty rad.
Yeah.
I had a hard time watching this match, I'll be honest with you. Jesse, I should have muted it, I think. Just Jesse Ventura referring to saying that the B in Coco Beware stands for the name of the black member of the Little Rascals, and then calls him that through the entirety of the match. I don't even think that was appropriate to do then, let alone now.
Yeah, it's pretty extreme. I mean, I guess what I found most memorable about it is just the name. I think it's the best of all the wrestlers they had on the show. I think Coco Beware is the name that I would most want to have come up with for myself personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a solid one. It's clever.
And he had longevity. He is the very first match on the very first Monday Night Raw, like 9 years after this, or something like that. No, it's 6 years after this. Sorry, I keep putting this in 1984, and it's 1987. So 6 years after this, he's Yokozuna's victim on the first match of the first Monday Night Raw, and he's tagging with Owen Hart at that time. So,
oh wow.
Yeah, they're both wearing like crazy 90s hammer pants. You should look it up. It's pretty awesome.
Was this early in his career though?
Debuted in 1978. Oh. So he really only hit it big around 86, 87. He was in WWF till 94.
Yeah.
He's still kicking. He's a good guy. My mom loved Coco Beware. She thought he was awesome. And she was right.
Made the match for me.
Yeah, he comes out flapping his arms. He's got a parrot. It's the WWF apparently added the parrot to him. He didn't have the parrot until he got there.
How did they get that parrot to be so calm? I mean, I don't know. I don't know parrots enough to know if that's pretty standard, but that was one thing that, the whole time watching, I'm like, how's that parrot not just like freaking out or flying away with all, surrounded by 93,000 people?
I just don't understand. Like, for some reason, him having a parrot is extremely logical. You hear the guy's name's Coco Beware. Oh, well, yeah, he should have a parrot.
Definitely.
I don't understand why my brain is making that natural conclusion. And obviously someone in the WWF also made that conclusion. You know what? Your name's Coco Beware. You should have a parrot.
So they more or less, maybe not literally, but more or less just handed him this parrot on his way to the ring. And they're like, here, this is your mascot now.
This is your lifelong companion.
Yeah, your gimmick is that you have a parrot and it works. And I don't understand why that works at all, but it totally does. It totally makes sense. It's the most logical thing on the show.
Had it been me, I think you played it off well though. Had it been me, I'd have spent most of the match, confused as to what I was going to do with the parrot afterwards. I'd be thinking that'd be the most prominent thing in my mind throughout the entire match. It's like,
oh, what do parrots eat?
I don't
have a cage.
Yeah, I've got a new pet now. I got to take care of.
Do I have to get him shots? What word should I teach him first?
I mean, they live for decades, and they have they need stimulation and stuff. That I'd have trouble focusing on what was going on. I'd be like, here, do you want this parrot? Do you want this? Do you want my parrot? I would say to either the ref or
maybe a nice fan in the front row who looks like he needs a friend.
Yeah. Pretend that it's your favorite pet parrot that you're just willing to give to this person because you're that awesome and friendly.
These are all important points to make. That's why we like having you on the show.
Back to the action. For some reason, Tito Santana shows up at the end of this match to beat up Slick because reasons.
He's just mad from the last match,
and that's his Latin temper, as Jesse Ventura says. So.
Yeah, Jesse Ventura once again proving that he's a jerk.
Coming in with more racial stereotypes than your grandpa at Thanksgiving dinner. Thanks, Jesse. All right, you guys, this is a barn burner. This is maybe one of the top 10 greatest of all time. Not to overhype it, but it's Ricky the Dragon Steamboat with George the Animal Steel in his corner versus Randy the Macho Man Savage with Miss Elizabeth in his corner for the WWF Intercontinental Championship title. So this is our first title match on the card. This is our third match in a row with an animal mascot. So we got George the Animal Steel. And it's, Yeah. Like I said, this is one of the ones that we talked about on your show a little bit. It's one that I like to just wind back and watch on occasion, just because it's so much fun. I'm sort of interested in kind of your general impressions, and then maybe we can talk about some of the more specifics then.
Yeah, I would say that this was my favorite match of WrestleMania 3. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with your earlier description of it, as far as just the what went into it technically, and as far as the choreography and you know the execution of it. It kind of it brings up a lot of questions about I mean, I could really ask this question about any match, but it's especially pertinent here is as far as how do they, how do the wrestlers avoid damage? How do they decide, how much of it is choreographed and how much of it is kind of off the cuff as far as deciding what moves to use and the way they communicate in the ring and that kind of thing. Because I think, I guess everything that went into making this match what it was, you could kind of apply to pro wrestling in general, but I guess more specifically to this one because of the background of it, like you described, the fact that it was. I guess I don't know about rehearsed, like if they actually said went through the moves prior to let's see how this works, let's see how this works, and that kind of thing. But I guess if you could kind of talk more about that, about what made what made this match what it was, what allowed them to execute these moves and that kind of thing, and make it look the way it.
Well, the first thing is that they set this match up with a beautiful, amazing storyline of Macho Man being unhinged and willing to do anything to just wanting to hurt his opponent. So that sets up a level of danger, except for that's kind of broken when they interview the doctor that has no shirt on under his lab coat. But it's highlighted by Jesse Ventura's "whoa." Whenever Jesse goes "whoa," that means it was very serious and very bad, because Jesse Ventura is a huge heel, and when he says that's bad, it's real bad. And Macho Man got about 20 of them in the lead up to set up to this match. And then both of them deliver some of their best promos ever before this match. The big line that comes out of Macho Man's promo is that he is the Lord and Master of the Ring, and that history beckons the Macho Man. And this is probably Ricky Steamboat's best ever promo, where he says, "My last opportunity. Randy Savage, the day has finally come. The minutes, the seconds, we have reached our moment. As you and I climb into the ring, we clash like two titans, but there will only be one winner. One winner, Savage. This dragon is made of fire. This dragon will scorch your back. I will come away with the championship belt and see new horizons." So like they've set up this massive epic stage that this is going to be an epic battle, using the word beckons, history beckons the Macho Man, and then like seeing new horizons for the Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. So they've already set up a canvas that is perfect for them to paint on. And then just the two men themselves, they're in their apex of physical shape. This is the best both of them ever look in their career. This is the most fit they ever are. They're the perfect age to be pro wrestlers. Then they took the time to lay it out. They just, this is what they were going to do. And it's like 140 or so cues that they sat down together before the match and pre-planned. And they would just call numbers to each other to move through these moves through the match. And they also set out with a goal to steal the show. Macho Man claimed that, I just wanted to do a good match. I wanted to look good. We had 90,000 people there. We wanted to make sure we were set. And Ricky Steamboat is on the record going, Macho Man totally wanted to steal the show. That was the whole point of this, was for us to try and make Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant look boring. And they kind of succeed. That's where we're set up.
It's a different kind of match for sure, right?
Yeah.
And I think you can, and one of the things I like about this special actually is that you can watch both and enjoy both, but for different reasons. Like if you want to watch wrestling, this is the match for you. If you want to watch like the WrestleMania spectacle and like what the 80s distilled to like 4.5 minutes or whatever it was, like then Hogan versus Andre is the match for you. So it's there's a little bit of something for everybody in this one. So there's a lot of chaos in this one too. George Animal Steel is running around like a maniac with his blue tongue and the world's hairiest shoulders. Like I'm pretty sure I saw that guy at Virginia Beach out there in a Speedo. There's always that one guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you guys have anything that stood out to you from this one? I mean, other than just the.
I mean, it was an all around good match, but I was excited for this one because for me, whether he's the good guy or the bad guy or whatever, or however you feel about him, the Macho Man Randy Savage, his voice to me is wrestling. That's what it just his whole that's what I hear when I think of wrestling. So I'm always happy whenever he comes on screen, whether it's in the ring or in a commercial or a movie. I've just as a character, I've always really liked him. So I mean, that right there was pretty cool. And then the match itself was just really good.
Yeah, he's iconic. Like there's not really anybody else that did it like him before or since. There's a reason that I always go looking for his gifts when I need to react to something. So
yeah,
or like no matter what the post is, I'm like, Macho Man sad is my search, or like Macho Man angry, and then I drop whatever gif. It always works. People love it.
I'm gonna make a music reference here. This match is like Mozart and following form, and so there's a back and forth, and the back and forth is like perfectly timed. Like the moment you think someone's finally about to get over the edge and really put away their opponent, they turn the tables around. Something happens, a reversal, a missed punch, and they flip it back around, and then the other person drives back at them almost at the exact same amount of time, and it's back and forth, and it's a beautiful form, and it reaches a climax with the beautiful camera angle of Macho Man standing on top of the ropes with his arms above his head, and Ricky is laid out on the mat, and he just flies like a bird, and it's like the perfect crescendo and the peak of the match, and then the chaotic coda of it all, and then you get the beautiful shot of Ricky Steamboat hugging George the Animal Steel on the little cart while holding the Intercontinental belt high in the air. It's so dramatic, and it's so paced perfectly, and it's hard to describe like what I'm feeling about this match. This match really gets to me.
There's also a really nice shot at the end of Macho Man and Elizabeth riding down the long walkway on their cart, and he's distraught and she's distraught, and they just both look totally defeated, and it's fantastic. It's high drama, and again, it's the match that I would show to anybody who's like, "Oh, wrestling's stupid." And like, okay, watch this motherfucker and tell me. And if they still thought it was stupid, then I'd just punch him in the balls. I'd punch him in the boiler. That's what I'd do.
Watch it again.
Watch it again. That's right. So I don't know. It's a good one. It like I said, I think it gets pretty close to stealing the show. And the matches after it definitely suffer a little bit. So maybe we can kind of hop through those a little bit. There's Honky Tonk Man with Jimmy Hart versus Jake the Snake Roberts with Alice Cooper. And I remember this one being like super played up. And they brought Alice Cooper out. It's going to be this whole big deal. He's from Detroit. He's kind of scary. He's got a snake, and he's got makeup and blah, blah, blah. But then this match is just kind of like, just sort of.
Yeah, Jake doesn't work for me as a good guy. The promo that he cuts before it is just so boring. And I just don't like it. I want him to be the creepy bad guy that's talking about how he's actually a snake and like has six senses and like is just gross and creepy and weird, not just like Honky Tonk Man, you're gonna get yours. That's basically what he just said before the match.
They did play down the snake aspect of his character a lot, or his personality a lot in this match. You'd almost have forgotten you were watching a match where one of the wrestlers was that closely associated with a
Yeah, did they even pull the snake out?
At the very
very
well, as
end, I
Cooper
think.
did at the
Yeah.
very.
Cooper did, yeah.
No, it's bad. And I think Jake, when he's in his good guy thing, he just looks like you're like kind of drunken racist uncle, like at the barbecue. And he's like hanging out with your weirdo metalhead friend who came with you, with Alice Cooper. And for some reason, he's starting a fight with the Elvis impersonator who's there just to do a show. So I don't know.
How high do you think Alice and Jake are going into this match? Like, how much blow is in their dressing room together before this match?
Yeah.
I don't think there's any cocaine left in Detroit by the time those two are done. Like, I feel like Detroit was probably not that big of a cocaine town, but those two guys got all of it. So
They brought it. They brought more from next door.
Yeah, it was actually pretty cool when we were watching it, and and they're coming to the ring, and it was like, wait a minute, is that actually that's
he's so little. He's so little. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Elizabeth outweighs him at this point.
His-
Frail little Chihuahua Elizabeth.
His legs were about half as big around as either of the wrestlers' arms.
Yeah.
There's a good line from Jesse Ventura. He says, "Snakes are dangerous when they're hurt," which is, I guess that's true. I mean, I guess it depends how badly they're hurt.
Well, you forgot the great line, "Go for the pin, honky," from Jesse as well. And Gorilla just is calling him honk through the whole match.
Luscious honk. Well, this is where Mean Gene gives us the attendance record, a brand new indoor attendance record of 93,173. And usually when that happens, you know that we're getting to the end of the show. This poor Michigan crowd is losing their shit. I don't know. Hopefully they've been
they are
hopefully been able to get out to the bathroom. I don't know. Do you think they're still selling beer at this time? Like, do they shut it down?
Oh, they didn't have rules on that shit back then. Are you kidding me?
That's true.
They're selling beer to people on the way out the door after the main event, man.
Yeah.
Somebody shared a video this week of maybe you sent that to me. It was like news footage from like the late 70s, early 80s when they made drinking and driving, like drinking while driving, like open container, illegal. And there's people on the news talking about like, wow, this hardly is America anymore. And like this guy's like cracking a butt in the front of a seat of his car. Anyway, have to imagine that's what the parking lot of this was like. So
yeah,
that was filmed there.
This is a hot one though. This is the Iron Sheik, the Legend of the Earth, Bubba, and good old Nikolai Volkov with Slick as their manager versus the Killer Bees. There's B. Brian Blair and Jumpin' Jim Brunzell. The Killer Bees were like super hot for about 12 and a half minutes as a tag team, and then they just kind of disappeared.
There is a sign alert here of Hulkster's Baltimore connection. Awesome.
What is that?
Shout out to Baltimore again.
What does that mean?
If I don't know, but if you are that person there, and I know you, or I don't know you, but you live in Baltimore still, hit us up. Let us know who you are. Who carried the Hulkster's Baltimore connection sign on a plane to Detroit? Let us know.
Is that a drug reference?
I think so.
So like the Sheik and Volkov, like everyone hates them so much. Like there's trash flying in the ring, like almost from the very beginning. You can't do that at most sporting or cultural art events. They get mad. Like everyone would go to the ballet and like go to the Nutcracker, and when like the Rat King come out or whatever, just be like throwing trash, be like boo,
Boo, boo.
throwing your popcorn box.
Your song's lame.
Fucking
Boo.
Rat King. But you guys familiar? Well, we talked on your show about the Iron Sheik's Twitter account and what a fine piece of art it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that, and I think this was the case with I don't know if this is intentional, but this seems to have been the case with a lot of the of these matches where you have the tag team matches. Another example I can think of is the one with the Canadian brothers, I guess, on one side, is that you've got two individuals, one team that have just way more personality, or seem to have way more personality than the other team. Where like what the Iron Sheik brings into the ring is, he's just one of the most memorable people in wrestling. Like anyone, even people who aren't fans know who the Iron Sheik is. And I guess not to take anything away from the Bumblebee guys, but
No, I mean that's the everyone, you're supposed to hate the Iron Sheik, and but as soon as I saw the Killer Bees, I was like, oh well, I hope they lose like badly.
Lame.
That just seeing them made me mad.
So it goes back to what I was saying earlier about how wrestlers prefer to be the bad guy because they can say and do whatever they want, and that is exactly what Nikolai and Iron Sheik are basking in. I mean, this is the twilight of the Iron Sheik's career and close to the end for Nikolai Volkov, kinda. But they live for this. You can if you look at Sheik, you can see he's got a little tiny little childish smirk every time when they do this shit. Especially when Nikolai starts singing the Russian national anthem. Nikolai is Croatian, by the way. He is not Russian. He's not Lithuanian, as they would say. Also,
he's also a U.S. citizen by this point, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So is the Iron Sheik.
Sheik had been a citizen for a long time at this point. But yeah, the crowd hates them. They're so good at getting heat. You don't see them get heat like this anymore in professional wrestling because people go, well, they're so bad at being bad guys. I like them. They start cheering for them. I blame Stone Cold. Stone Cold kind of broke that. Stone Cold was supposed to be a bad guy the whole time. So was The Rock.
So the more modern wrestling, you have kind of anti-heroes where the people hate them but don't hate them, whereas back then it was just pure animosity toward these guys.
Absolutely. Like Iron Sheik has had death threats and physical attacks on him trying to get to the car. They would park him in the basement of the arena so that he could drive out and not be seen by people, not follow him to the hotel because wrestling was real.
He was also traveling buddies with Hacksaw Jim Duggan,
right?
Who shows up in this match to wave a 2x4 around and bring a flag to the ring and get some cheap patriotic cred. There's actually a sort of famous thing where they got caught like, what are they, smoking crack?
They got busted for cocaine, I believe, in New Jersey, and so this is actually like the thing, one of the big events that starts poking holes in professional wrestling kayfabe, and that's they both get arrested driving together, and good guys and bad guys are not supposed to be driving together. Now, Hacksaw was supposed to actually become like the next big thing after Hulk Hogan, and you can tell kind of in this, he's the big patriotic guy. He's looking very svelte in this. Like I've never seen him look in better shape before or after WrestleMania 3. But in a couple months, him and the Sheik get arrested in New Jersey, and Sheik had more than 3 grams on him, apparently, which was a big time felony. And Hacksaw only had like a gram, so that was a misdemeanor. So Hacksaw stays employed, but doesn't get the big face push that was supposed to happen for him. Sheik gets fired. Sheik is gone. Sheik thinks his wrestling career is completely over. And he spirals out of control, poor guy. But like that was the big reason why his career was over, was not because of the cocaine, because all the wrestlers did cocaine. That wasn't the big deal. The big deal was that he was caught
right now.
Right.
No,
he was caught in the press with a good guy in the same place. Big no. You just tore down the curtain. People can see in the back now. So
I'm shocked to find there are drugs going on in here. So Hacksaw comes in, lays the wood to the heels, breaks up the match. Everybody has a good time, but it does cost the faces the match. Crowd doesn't like that. There's a lot of trash. And then that brings us up to the main event. You guys ready? Are you hype? I feel like we've been talking way too long, and I'm sorry. It's.
I mean, I'm sure the listeners realize it, but it's funny anytime you mention throwing trash, like you literally mean like throwing actual trash into the ring, not just like ooze and stuff, like actually throwing trash.
No, it's garbage.
Like like popcorn bags, drink cups, cans.
It looks like
Just-
they're taking popcorn bags, balling them up, soaking them in like soda or water or beer, and so that they like solidify like paper mache, and then throwing that at them. You can see it bouncing off of the wrestlers as they're heading to the ring.
I don't know if I ever was in a situation where I was, some sort of a performer like that. Even if my role was the bad guy or whatever, I don't know if I could emotionally handle a crowd of people throwing stuff at me like that, like giant spitballs and stuff. Just
I don't know if I could throw something. Like, imagine being in a crowd, like
you're that mad at someone.
Yeah, like if you're that, just no matter how mad you are at this dude, like, yeah, okay, he's a heel. Like,
Yeah.
I get it, but and I've got this drink in my hand. That drink is not leaving my hand and flying across the space toward that guy. Like,
I'm gonna soak my popcorn bag in
care
this
how-
beer.
I don't care how drunk I am. I don't care what I did, before I made it to the venue. That the drink is not going into the air.
It
mean,
costs
makes us-
the 1987 equivalent of $11. I ain't throwing that thing.
Right. I mean, a pop was $1, at this show. It's crazy. That's so expensive. I'm not throwing my pop.
Gallon of gas was cheaper. Could have just thrown that. So anyway,
Light it.
I don't know. Don't throw gas on people. It's rude. I feel like we have to keep making disclaimers. That we're just
Yeah, we do that a lot on our show.
we're trying to cover all our legal bases.
When I started dating my wife, she's from Philadelphia, and that's when I learned about. I mean, I knew what they did, that they did this, but I didn't know it was called a Philly snowball, and it's basically a D battery. You go to an Eagles game, and when they start losing, you throw D batteries on the field at the players. That's what you do, apparently.
Yeah.
So
What an unfortunate thing to happen on D battery night.
yeah.
They really.
Speaking of trash, Philly's a trash town for trash people.
Hey,
I'm not taking that one back.
it's not
Suck
too
it,
bad.
Philly.
It's not too bad.
All right. It's not too bad if you're a trash person.
So
Anyway,
finally, Andre speaks.
hello, pretty lady.
Earlier in the show, we just saw him like kind of staring into space while Bobby Heenan talked. But now
very stoic.
suddenly Andre goes, and he doesn't say much. He just says, "It won't take me long to come back in front of the camera with the world championship belt." And then Bobby Heenan just goes nuts. He's going to make me famous. Like, that's all Bobby Heenan cares about, is that he gets a champion in his stable no matter what it takes. So I think this would be a good time to mention the lies that this entire storyline with Andre and Hogan is based on. So, like, as you guys might remember, you saw in the footage going into this match, Andre celebrating with Hulk Hogan, and that happened on January 23rd, 1984. It's actually what we just talked about in our most recent episode, where Hulk Hogan beats the Iron Sheik for the championship. Since then, Hulk Hogan has been champion 3 years going. And so we have the 1 week, President Tunney presents Hogan a trophy for being a huge trophy for being champion for 3 years. And then the next week, Tunney presents a much smaller trophy. And you see the trophy that he presents to Andre. That's the small trophy to Andre for being undefeated in the WWF.
Are you
for
sure it was
15
small, or
years.
didn't just look small in Andre the Giant's hands?
Proportion.
Everything looks small in Andre's hands. But so Andre has not wrestled with the WWF for 15 years at this point. His first match with the WWF was in 1973. Now, the WWF universe, at this point, their audience, from what I can tell from the records I've been able to find online, they have not seen Andre lose. But Andre loses a lot in his career. He just does. That's just how it is. Wrestlers lose, wrestlers win. So his most recent loss before this match was just a couple months before in Japan to the great Antonio Inoki. So maybe if people had gotten some bootleg tapes from their Japanese friends or something like that floated over. They might have seen Andre the Giant just straight up lose, but you know, we can accept that, you know, the WWF universe hasn't seen them seen Andre lose. So at the end of this match, they talk about Andre's streak, but also Gorilla, and I'm pretty certain it's mentioned prior to Gorilla Monsoon mentions that Andre the Giant had never been body slammed, and that is a straight up lie. In 1980, Hogan and Andre had a big feud, and it was the main event for the Showdown at Shea, which was a big event that they did. That they only did, I think, they only showed it on closed circuit television, and I think they sold tapes of it. But in that, Hogan is the heel and Andre is the good guy, and Hogan body slams Andre. No big deal.
Well, it's funny when you say that you know, not only has Andre the Giant been body slammed, but he's been body slammed in the WWF, you know, by Hulk Hogan before, because that's kind of what this whole, from my experience with it, is that's like the main thing that this whole WrestleMania 3 is known for, was like this was when, you know, the impossible
if you talk
happened.
to Hulk Hogan, he'll tell you.
Yeah.
He's forever giving interviews where he's talking about how
he's living the gimmick.
What an amazing feat it was that he did this. So
I don't know. I agree with him. I find it hard not to be genuinely impressed, regardless of the fact that it wasn't the first time.
Yeah, Andre's a big guy, and this is probably to give him credit. It is probably the heaviest weight Andre has been when body slammed, but it's not the first. He's not the only. He had been body slammed a couple times in Japan before coming over. So it was actually Vince McMahon's idea to actually tell Andre the Giant to stop being like a real wrestler. So Andre used to do drop kicks. He used to do real holds. He used to do real mat stuff. Like, the dude was badass and he's huge. So that's why he was a real draw. But Vince told him, why don't you tone it down and just be a big lumbering invincible giant guy? It worked out pretty well for him and probably added a lot of time to his career.
Yeah, he didn't have to do a whole lot. He did a bunch of sort of battle royal kind of things where he would just kind of come in and toss people over the top rope and take home the trophy for the battle royal. You know, it's sort of an easy gimmick for a guy that size. He's a legit talent and a legit. He's an attraction, I think, too. At this point, he's more of like the attraction than the talent thing, which is interesting. So, but there's also a you know, definitely kind of a changing of the guard here, right, from the territory days of Andre to the over the top like cartoon superstars of Hogan. So that's kind of the backdrop and what this match is really about. I mean, it's about being like the biggest sports entertainment event of all time, but it's also really about this kind of shift. And this is the death knell for the territory days, both this special and then this match in particular. So
Andre was a huge draw in like all the territories. And it was not until like 1984 that he just like signed on stable with WWF. For like 10 years before that, he would work anywhere and everywhere. Doesn't matter what town, he just traveled everywhere and he worked for them and he was huge everywhere. So Hulk Hogan had become a big name through the AWA in Minnesota and then in WWF as WWF pushed that network broadcast thing across the coast. But Andre was known worldwide because of his actual like work in every territory. So like he's worked in every state, he's worked in every country in the world. You know, he's incredibly well known, and so it's the perfect match if you're going to have a big mega super card and you're going to put your homegrown talent versus a talent that has been known all over the world before it. This is the perfect pairing. It's the irresistible force meeting the immovable object. Gorilla Monsoon is perfectly describing this match. and how it exists and why it should exist.
And so something that impressed me about the match is, given everything that, the history behind the two individuals and what led up to it, I couldn't help but notice Hogan really seizing the moment in terms of, obviously what he had to do in there was to, he understood that he was up in the ring with someone who was, much less mobile, someone who, like you said, was, at that point in his career was just more lumbering, not moving around a lot. But so it's something I noticed is that Hogan, just in his kind of his own animated way, sort of made up that gap, and it really upped the contrast between their two styles. The fact that he had to kind of, that he had to go in there in front of this crowd of 93,000 people and basically do the work of two wrestlers because one of them is able to do very little. And you could see it. You could see that he had the energy for both of them.
Yeah, he's basically wrestling like a refrigerator at this point. Like, so he's like a weasel on crack in there. He's just like going to town, and everything, his something about his face too is, he has such an expressive face. He's got big eyes, he's got that facial hair, he's got the hair that kind of frames his face, and I think that's part of what kind of makes him look so expressive. And every move, that Andre no sells, that shock registers on Hogan's face. And every time that, Hogan takes a swift chop or almost gets pinned by the, Andre falling on him, you see the fear in his face. And he was really good at that kind of thing. I think that's, one of the things that really made him great. So he's fighting, this is what you call fighting from underneath, right? He's never really taking over here. Andre is always on top of him. Andre is always bigger, stronger, and working him over. But he gets his shot and he goes for it. He hits the kick, hits the body slam, of course, and then drops the big leg and gets the pin, and the crowd goes bananas. So you guys obviously have seen that slam. Have you actually seen this whole match though before, start to finish?
I don't believe I had up until
before this. No, this was for some. I've actually watched the entire match.
Yeah, the slam gets excerpted a lot, right? It's in all the clip shows, it's in commercials, it's it's all over the place. But yeah, I think what's interesting is to actually play it back and watch the whole thing sort of unfold. It's also, it's not long, but it's like long enough to really create some tension. The time listed here is 12 minutes. A lot of that is them like staring at each other, and a lot of just not really going at it, but just like him trying and not getting anywhere, right? Like hitting Andre and Andre no selling it.
Yeah, I had never realized how stiff Hogan was working in this match. He is hitting Andre the Giant really hard. You can see sweat flying off of Andre's chest when he's taking those chops to the chest. And you can't fake that. I mean, just because Andre's big doesn't mean that's not hurting him. He's eating those shots, and Andre, knows he has to, because it doesn't look realistic if it looks like Hogan is pulling his punches at all.
Sure.
You have to hit him. It has to look real, because what else is Hogan going to do to Andre? You're going to roll him up in a small package? You're going to sunset flip him? No.
Right.
It's 550 pounds, 7 foot tall.
Put him in a figure 4 leg lock.
Right. He's going to roll him over in the Boston Crab. Got him. Nailed it. So all you can do is just hit him and hit him and hit him and hope to get him off balance. And he's really hitting them because it's got to look real. It's the only way this match works.
The wind up, the level of, when he threw the punches and that, or the slaps or that kind of thing, is interesting seeing the way he wound up. Anything he could do to get the crowd into it and to show movement or energy that the crowd could see from half a mile or however far the furthest seats were. It seems like he went into the ring with taking all that into account. What is gonna work and look right for someone who sees me as an ant from their distance.
Yeah, it's got to work from the cheap seats too, right? Like,
Yeah, so it just it gave me a little more respect for him as a professional and doing what he did, is to just kind of taking that into account.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that he was a showman and probably one of the best in-ring showmen ever. He knew how to he knew the timing with the crowd. He knew how to get the crowd behind him. He knew how to make things kind of look believable. Sometimes there's other moments where he doesn't, but nobody's perfect. But there is a charisma that he oozes in the ring that, and he kind of hints at that at his pre-match promo where he's talking about how like he's not worried about the people in the Silver Dome or across the street watching on closed circuit television, but he's worried about all the other people in the world that aren't going to see it and how he needs their energy to defeat the giant. So he's got this
hanging and banging.
charisma. Right, he's hanging and banging. Yeah. He's got this incredible charisma that becomes so overwhelming that as this match goes and builds, Jesse Ventura stops talking during this match. He stops his color commentary of picking on the ref or saying that Heenan needs to be more involved or that Hogan is cheating. I mean, Hogan cheats, but he lays out. Hogan's charisma takes over, and Gorilla Monsoon is even very minimally talking, just covering the action, not throwing in any of his poetry or anything like that. Halfway through the match, there's almost no commentary. And it's because Hogan's charisma just carries the whole moment, along with Andre's stoicism. Like, he looks unbreakable. He looks unstoppable. And somehow Hogan pulls it out. And so it doesn't matter that the WWF has lied to us about about the whole build-up and the whole story and lore of this match. It doesn't matter because Hogan and Andre are just so charismatic and work so perfectly together. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, they were good contrast.
Yeah, okay. He's never body slammed him, even though I got a VHS tape at home of him doing it. Right. Yeah, I've never seen Andre the Giant lose, I guess, but oh yeah, he fights in Japan and he loses a lot in Japan. Like, it doesn't matter. Just like how it doesn't matter whether wrestling's real or not. This moment is so big and so grandiose and so dramatic that it's real. It is.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that moment was, what all of that was leading up to. That's what this whole event is known for, as that one moment.
Yeah. And it's a perfect ending. You get Andre riding down the aisle in a little cart. Bobby Heenan is looking distraught. Hogan is in the ring to pose. He may still actually be there posing. I don't know. Oh no, that's not true. They tore down that Silver Dome, and
he's still there anyway.
He's just like going from house to house, posing in front of people's kids or whatever. So the last thing that we always do when we run these down is sort of pick a best match, a worst match, and if you had like an oh shit moment, a moment that really like kind of took you out of yourself and made you sort of stand up and pay attention. Did you guys have a favorite match out of the card?
I would say the Dragon versus Macho Man was that stood out. But as we talk about the very last match, the Hogan versus Andre, and I think back about it, it's like in my mind, it's more it didn't reach the technical level of some of the other matches, but just as a show, as a putting on a show, it was spectacular. It worked. Couldn't have worked better for what they were trying to accomplish.
What about you, Jeff?
There was a lot of the matches were really good, but I'd definitely say the last one for me, just because even if you hate him, Hulk Hogan kind of embodies what pro wrestling is all about. And then Andre the Giant, I've always been a big fan of his ever since choosing him as a character as a regular in the original Nintendo game. And also, obviously from The Princess Bride and a couple other things like that. Always been a big fan of both those guys or those characters or whatever you want to say. So for me, I'd say that the final match was probably my favorite.
Yeah, I think that's what we both chose when we wrote it up for the blog. Did you have a a worst match or a least favorite match from what you saw?
For me, it'd probably be the Killer Bees. This just really annoyed me. It's like as soon as they came out, I was like, "This just
Fuck these
just
guys.
made me mad." Yeah, everything about them made me mad.
That's fair. That's fair.
He was jealous. You were jealous of him.
Yeah, I was very jealous. That's why I was mad. I was like, "I want to be a
You
Killer
were
Bee."
like, why can't there be 3 of them and I can be one? But it's not 1987, so you would have
Yeah.
been like, you'd be like, why couldn't I have been 10 years old and one of
I
them?
went home that night and designed my Luscious Bee costume.
Luscious
Jeff
Bee.
the Luscious Bee.
They actually did. They wore masks for a while, so you guys totally could have been bees. You could have been like substitute bees and just swap you in whenever.
Yeah.
Other than the fact that we were 10 at the time, we totally would have fit right
Yeah.
in as Killer Bees.
I don't know if I ever really forgave them for killing Macaulay Culkin and My Girl, but
Too soon.
Exactly.
Too soon, man.
Too soon.
We can't talk about that.
too
It
soon.
was the wrestlers.
It's too soon.
Yeah, no, that match is kind of a bummer. The Hercules and Billy Jack Haynes one kind of bores me, and the double count out is kind of like, eh. Rich, which
That
one?
match was boring, but I still just like the fact that guy claims to be Hercules. I give that one a pass just for that.
No, that's legit. That's legit.
I don't remember which one in the blog that I said I didn't like the most, but I think on this watching, it's the Jake the Snake versus Honky Tonk Man. And the big reason why for me is that this entire match felt like it was only set up to get the finish, to get the post match dramatics of Alice Cooper getting the snake on Jimmy Hart, my man. And so that like everything else in this actual match didn't seem to matter. It just everything was about the post match theatrics of Honky Tonk Man running away and leaving Jimmy Hart. So
that is the one
Actually,
that is the one that you put for the blog.
I was about to say I've got the blog post here, and yeah that was the same one you hated back then.
So you're
I'm
consistent.
Yeah.
So the other one is the yeah, I agree. Killer Bees, like I said, it's the fact I would have liked to really have seen the Iron Sheik go to it a little bit more, but that one gets broken up so quickly by Hacksaw. So I blame the cocaine. And then did you have an oh shit moment for this one?
I actually might want to go back now that I think about it. I might want to agree with Rich on that one as far as the worst match, because that with Jake the Snake not being Jake the Snake, not he's boring. That was a really boring match. I mean, you would think even the fact that even bringing Alice Cooper out to stand in your corner really didn't do anything for it. It was just like, ugh.
I was kind of expecting Alice Cooper to be badly hurt just being near the wrestler. Like if one of them like threw a punch that came within a foot of him or something like that, break his nose.
Yeah.
So oh shit
He
moment.
definitely looks a little too fragile to be out there with the big boys.
Yeah, I was scared for him. I was legit scared for Alice Cooper. I was like, okay, I had to tell myself it's okay, Andy. He's still alive.
I've seen him.
He doesn't die in 1987 at WrestleMania 3. He's okay.
He's playing golf on Hawaii with Willie Nelson.
Yeah, exactly.
So, well, while you think about that, Rich, for the blog, you tossed a coin between Hogan slamming Andre and the Brutus Beefcake face turn with the barber.
I'm going to pivot.
Okay, go for it.
My oh shit moment actually was like 30 seconds into Andre versus Hulk, and Hulk goes for the body slam and Andre completely just pancakes on him. If you've never seen this match and you don't know anything really about wrestling in the 80s and you see that, you legit think that's the end of this match and that this main event, that could be it. And it's miraculous that Hulk Hogan kicks out. Like so I think that's honestly the best moment, because that also just sets up this whole match of Hulk fighting from underneath. It literally he is at that moment, but it makes the entire match a comeback for him, because 30 seconds in, it's a blowout. Andre wins, done. So I think that's actually my oh shit moment.
Yeah, and he barely gets out from underneath that too, because Andre's not really helping him him kick out at all. So, all right, did you guys come up with something
for the oh shit moment?
Yeah,
I think for me, it would when Macho Man got up on the ropes, because that's just an iconic scene. So, or I mean, that's something you see a lot over the years. But just when he got up there and did that, I don't know, that was just like instant nostalgic for me. And I, in my head, I was just like, oh shit, there we go. That's what you want to see.
Like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah, exactly.
Now go watch any modern wrestling and watch how long it takes someone to climb to the top rope compared to how fast Macho Man does it. It'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
Macho Man is up there in one step. Just all right there. He's there. Nowadays, and even then, a lot of the wrestlers is like 3 or 4 steps, and it's several seconds, and it takes you out of the moment of disbelief of wrestling sometimes with how long it takes them to get up there and how long the opponent lays prone waiting for them to jump on them. But Macho Man, his speed to get up there is so fast that it's completely believable that you would still be knocked out and laying down when he comes flying at you. So good pick.
I barely had time to put my bean dip down, watch him climb up there. So. Andy, did you have a different one, or
I would say the first, when Hulk Hogan the first interview, or when he spouts nonsense.
Yeah,
I don't know, I'm having a hard time verbalizing what I find interesting and fascinating about Hulk Hogan, but it's something to do with the fact that he seems to live his life like, all I need is energy. I don't need content. I don't need to make sense. I don't need to, it's just if he's just like a ball, like an enormous. I don't know how he wants. What is he? 3 maybe
it's a big dude.
Ball of muscle and energy, and sometimes that works, and for him it works.
That's a good observation, actually.
Yeah.
It's right, because there isn't a whole lot of content there.
He comes at you with the 4 commandments, and that's it.
Yeah, he's got a good tan. He's got big arms. He'll tear his shirt off if he needs to, and everything is just.
He looks like he's shooting lasers at you all the time.
Yeah,
he's a nutcase.
There's a video going around right now where someone took a Hulk Hogan promo and reversed the audio, and it still works. Right. You can't understand a single word that he's saying,
I believe it.
but the energy that still comes through, it's so intense that you're like, yeah, that's right. I'm with this guy. This is amazing. Hulk Hogan all the way. Like it
easily makes as much sense as hanging and banging.
Yeah.
So I'll just say. Yeah. Mine is probably, I don't know, there's a bunch of them in this show. One of the ones that gets me every time is Adrian Adonis flipping over the top turnbuckle. Like he's not like 300 pounds in giant granny panties. That dude he just whips right over the top. Like he's fucking Ric Flair. Like it's incredible. That blows my mind. This was one of the first times we saw him and we're like, wait, do we like Adrian Adonis? Like, is he, maybe he's good. And it turns out he's actually really good if you go back and watch some other stuff.
Yeah.
So that was a good one. We always do a little in memoriam section for the folks that we've lost, who are no longer with us. So we'll just run down the in memoriam section for WrestleMania 3 from 1987. Include Adrian Adonis, Andre the Giant, King Kong Bundy, British Bulldog, Dynamite Kid, Fabulous Moolah, Howard Finkel, Aretha Franklin, Mr. Fuji, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Hercules, Junkyard Dog, Little Beaver, Little Tokyo, Lord Littlebrook, Miss Elizabeth, Gloria Monsoon, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Mean Gene Okerlund, Rowdy Roddy Piper, King Harley Race, Randy the Macho Man Savage, George the Animal Steel, Luscious Johnny Valent, Nikolai Volkov, Tom Zank, Referee Dave Hebner, Referee Jack Lotz, Referee Joey Morella, son of Gorilla Monsoon, Butch Reed, and the Pontiac Silverdome, demolished 2018. Anyway, well, that's our episode of all the WrestleManias. Again, we really appreciate the Turtle Wars guys being here with us. We hope you had a good time. Would you be interested in watching more wrestling shows in the not too distant future?
I had an excellent
absolutely,
time. Yes.
Yeah, maybe we can watch one that's I don't know. We could find something a little more modern or even older, or find some extra bat shit to watch. We'll figure out something good. So again, you can find them on turtlewars.net on all your favorite podcast apps. Jeff and Andy, we really appreciate you being here. Their podcast is great. You should check it out. It's a lot of fun. Listen along. They have ridiculous conversations. Like if you had a good friend that you had like ridiculous conversations with, like, or if you've ever wanted one, that's a good podcast to listen to, because then you can like pretend you have friends. That's the main reason I listen to it. So I laugh, I pretend I'm talking to the guys, and we have a good time. So
I can't suspend belief that much to believe that I have friends. So
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It's nice. It's nice because it helps me stop crying for like a few hours a day, when I listen. So I appreciate that. Anyway, Turtle Wars.
I just watched that Hulk Hogan promo over and over again. And that's for me.
That gives you the energy to keep going.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again for now.
Thanks for having us. This has been great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll do it again real soon. So for now, I'm your co-host, Tim.
And I'm Rich.
And I'm saying so long, everybody.